Houston, virtual Big B Meetup. Big B Meetup is a community initiative founded in 2018 in Qatar. It is dedicated to my mother, the late Aureliana Josephine, and inspired by the people of Qatar. It aims to educate, to inspire, to inform, and bring communities together. Today's edition is a 4th of July speciale, and my guest tuning in all the way from Houston, Texas, USA, are His Excellency, the former ambassador of the US to Qatar, Ambassador Chase Untermeyer, and his wonderful wife, Diana. Welcome to our community meetup, and it's an absolute honor to have you both as my guests today.
Our great pleasure, Bosco. Thank you for inviting us. It gives us a chance to be in Doha in spirit, if not in person.
Hear, hear.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Great. So, Ambassador, starting off with you, although I do know it's ladies first, but I'd like to have the pleasure of speaking to you first, because I've been talking to Diana for the past 1 year. Absolutely. Yeah. So my first question, which is a generic question for everybody who comes on my show, is how do you, or in this case, how did you all cope with COVID?
I am happy to say that we are fortunate to live in a house in a very comfortable, shaded neighborhood. I feel very sorry for those people who are having to cope with this pandemic who live in apartments, particularly if they are very crowded. We are here, our daughter is an adult and living in San Francisco, so it's just us and the cat, and that makes it a lot easier to live with each other and live with the disease when you're not pressed together with so many people.
Yeah, we feel very blessed. I could use a haircut, but besides that, everything has been available, and we feel that we've been very, very lucky. And as Chase said, our hearts just go out to all the people who are suffering. And, we're being very careful wearing our masks on those occasions when we do go to the grocery store, that kind of thing. But we're just hanging in there.
Yeah, that's nice. You guys are being obedient and really keeping a social distance from everybody, which is nice. Let's cut to the chase and dive straight into this. What do you say?
Yes, I've never heard of cutting to the Bosco, but we can do that too.
That's a nice one. I like that. Yeah. Ambassador Chase, please can you give us some insights into your life in the Navy? I believe you're a Navy SEAL? No.
No, nothing that glamorous. I was a 2-year very junior officer in the U.S. Navy during the Vietnam War, in which I did 2 things in 2 years. One was to be the navigator aboard an old World War II destroyer in the Pacific. Most of that time, the ship was in the shipyard, so I did very little navigating. And then I was assigned to be the aide to an admiral, a 2-star rear admiral, who was the commander of the U.S. Naval Forces in the Philippines. That was a very exciting, colorful experience, and in its own way, great preparation for becoming an ambassador one day.
True, I'm sure, absolutely. And a little story on your journey in the White House. Not your journey, I mean your whole life journey. I would like to know a bit of it, but your journey as a White House member. Please explain your experience.
Yes, well, that all resulted from the fact that when I was a university student, I volunteered in the congressional campaign of a young Houston oil man named George H.W. Bush. Although at that time he only called himself George Bush, he didn't use his 2 middle initials. He got elected, and I spent the next 2 summers working on his staff in Washington, and that began a truly half-century long relationship in which I was able to be in touch with him. And when he became vice president under Ronald Reagan in 1981, I went to Washington to be his executive assistant, and then stayed on during the rest of the Reagan administration until he became president. And then Diana and I both were on his staff in the White House.
Wow. Wow. So I could clearly say you're somewhat royalty in politics, Charles and Diana in the US.
Not royalty, but we were fortunate enough to know some pretty wonderful people. And I should say the obvious, and that is that by knowing George and Barbara Bush, I got to know their son, George W. Bush, who gave me the great honor of appointing me as ambassador to Qatar in 2004. And that's why you and I are speaking today.
Yes, very true. Well, actually, I was talking to Diana a couple of months ago, and I met her. I mean, I got her on social media, and I asked her, by the way, Diana, are you related to the ambassador, the former ambassador of Qatar? And she said, yeah, I'm his wife. And I'm enacting it right now. I actually know these places. I'm like, okay, because there are so many ambassadors to Qatar from the US and even my country of India, but I don't remember them that well as the Untermeyers. That is because of your love and your relationship with Qatar over the years, and that's what it's grown in my subconscious mind, I would call it. Coming back to your life journey, Ambassador, what was it like to be appointed? I mean, if you could, what was it like to be appointed the ambassador of Qatar by George Bush, the president of the US at that time? Because those are very exciting times, the early 2000s. Can you give us a little more about that?
Well, first, to pick up on your words a moment ago, Bosco, Diana and I and our daughter, do have great affection for Qatar. In many ways, our second homeland. And yet, when that appointment came in 2004, neither of us had ever been in Qatar. In fact, neither of us had ever been in the Gulf countries. I say that with one exception, and that is when I worked for then Vice President Bush in 1982. We went to Riyadh for 18 hours at the time of the death of King Khalid, but I don't believe that was considered very important for my being selected as ambassador to a Gulf country 22 years later. So it was entirely a new acquaintance. In fact, when we stepped down from the airliner to be greeted at the steps by my deputy, we knew exactly 0 people in the entire nation of Qatar. But it was our job to get to meet people, and it proved to be a great pleasure. It also proved to be, as you said, by happy coincidence, a very signal time for Qatar, which was in those years blooming and bursting into the world wonder that it has become.
And I think that, it helped us build the friendship. There are a number of things. I mean, Chase, very competent. He was very in the policy points of view. He had been the director of the Voice of America, which gave him a unique perspective on Al Jazeera, which was an issue that, of course, the George W. Bush administration was very concerned about. He also had deep military ties, having been in the military and served in the Pentagon. So really, 2 of the primary issues Chase was really an expert on. And then he's just a great manager. And then, of course, we had a daughter, and that's always children are always a real secret weapon in terms of getting to meet people. As soon as they go to school, you meet all these people. And, so I think the first or second day of school, we got to know Sheikh Faisal bin Jassim's family. One of his daughters was, I guess, middle daughter. Third daughter was in Ellie's class. And so there we are over in Garatha with them. And so you just meet lots of people in those ways.
Would Ellie be Eleanor or Ellie?
Just Ellison.
Ellison. Okay. Oh, okay. Because I had an Eleanor. Eleanor as a colleague, and we used to call her Ellie. But I like the way you, if I could say, with all due respect, I like the way you barged into my chat with Ambassador Chase. I have a lot of questions for you, Diana, but it's very nice. I particularly like this picture you sent me of Ambassador Chase, where it looks like of course, it's the desert, but is that Coral Day?
It is Coral Day, and that was taken just 2 years ago with last year with the Qatar Harvey Fund. Was that last year?
Maybe that was the time.
It was. That's when it was. But was that last year?
Yes.
Yes.
2019.
So as you know, Qatar has been very instrumental in giving the funds $100 million for Katrina relief, and then $30 million for after Hurricane Harvey. And Chase was the advisor and put a really wonderful advisory committee together for the projects. And Chase brought all those people by the invitation of Qatar to visit.
Lovely. Pardon me?
Just what Diana was referring to was a special trip by which the people who had served as volunteers, a very distinguished group of people here in Houston on that advisory board to expend the $30 million Qatar was very gracious to give for relief. And the ministry invited the entire board to be its guests on a trip to Qatar, which they, who had never been to Qatar, thoroughly enjoyed. And we, of course, thoroughly enjoyed being with them to come back.
Yeah. I know. I'm still gutted that you guys had come to Doha last year for the opening of the National Museum, and I didn't get a chance to meet either of y'all, and even the Diana at
Unfortunately,
or was it you alone?
Wasn't able to come. That was just me at that opening. We were there for the opening of the Museum of Islamic together, but I was the only one that was able to come.
Okay.
The National Museum.
Coming back to Ambassador Chase, just two or three more questions actually. Voice of America, VOA. A little bit about that, just a few lines, because I'm a big VOA fan, and I think it is the voice of America. So let me hear it from your voice.
Yes, the Voice of America, which was founded at the start of American involvement in World War II, has continued to be, as you say, the voice of America, to let the world know in some 50 languages about the United States, but also about world news. And that is of particular value in countries that have very tightly restricted or non-existent presses, whereby the people must turn to international broadcasting to get the news of what's happening in the world, and sometimes inside their own country. I have been a journalist, namely a newspaper reporter, not a radio, television broadcaster, here in Houston at the start of my career. So that gave me a bit of journalistic credibility when I was appointed by the first President Bush to head the Voice of America. It was a wonderful place, and it was a political appointment, which meant that when the first President Bush lost his race for re-election to Bill Clinton, then I lost my job at VOA at the same time. Those are the rules, but at least it was a good and very exciting and fulfilling 17 months to be in that job.
I'm sure it was, yeah. So you were with the Houston Chronicle, wasn't it?
Yes, I was a
political
reporter for them at the start of my career, after which I then went into politics.
Wow, that's excellent. And another blue chip company you work for, Compaq. These are, Fortune 500 companies. How was it working at Compaq? I don't think so. They are in business anymore, but they were they were up there. Wasn't it a Fortune 500 company, Compaq?
I believe at the time it was even Fortune 50 company. It was that big. It was a computer designer, manufacturer, and marketer. And it did do very, very well during the 1990s. But then things began to slip, and it merged with Hewlett-Packard, or HP. And I think they retained the name Compact for some of the products, but as a company, it no longer exists.
Okay, yeah.
But it was
When you say Hewlett Packard,
yeah, that was an interesting job. He'd always wanted to work for a company. I said it was an interesting time. He'd always wanted to work for a company that actually made things. And so I think that was something interesting. Although everybody would ask him computer questions, but he was not a computer expert.
Yes.
Yeah, I can imagine. Oh, well, when you say Hewlett Packard, the car comes to mind. I always wanted to drive a Packard. It's an old car.
Yes, no relationship between the wonderful cars that you're thinking of, those enormous, almost boat-like American vehicles back in the 1920s and 30s.
Yeah.
But
Behemoth.
Another name, another family name.
Yeah, true. So I'm in the midst of two authors here. I addressed Diana as an author, but you've authored 4 books. That's phenomenal. And wow,
Here they are.
wow, yeah. Oh, can you put that a bit closer to the first one? Is that Ronald Reagan, one of my favorite presidents of America? Okay,
Yeah.
wow. Oh, that's a beautiful one. Yeah.
That's the first one. This is the second one, inside Reagan's Navy. This is the third one, Zenith.
Zenith, yeah. I like that. That's my favorite.
And then this is a wonderful book of not etiquette, but of advice on how people can sort of project themselves in public circumstances.
That missed my radar. That book missed my radar. That's a very interesting name. I mean, all your books' names are interesting, but that particular name is very interesting. How important people act. I can see that. I'm getting a live tutorial here from y'all. Is that book available online? How can we purchase it? Do I get a signed autographed book at some point?
Inshallah, yes, and inshallah it will be person to person in Doha. But unfortunately, the book is currently out of print. People can probably find copies if they search around online, but it proved to be too popular, and then the publisher went out of business. So if any watching us would like to come forward and be the publisher of the book, we'll welcome it. But right now, it's in print.
This is very nice. Actually, it's very opportune to speak that way, because if we could have a chat about this book later on, and maybe we could talk to HBKU Press, the Hamad bin Khalid University, because they're a prolific publishing house, and I plan to approach them for a book about Qatar that I want to publish in 2022. So that book, I'm sure they'd be open-armed, willing to talk to the Untermeyers for another book. I'm sure about it.
Yes, well, the 3 books about my experiences in the Reagan and first Bush administration were published by Texas A&M University Press. Of course, Texas A&M, major presence in Doha, and there is that connection.
Colloquially called Tamu, right?
Yes, exactly, or Eggy land, we say in Texas.
Yeah, true. I'd like to go to some. Diana has very kindly sent me some pictures. I'd like to share some of them, and if you could, you all could explain a bit about your life in Qatar, either Diana or Ambassador Chase. I know Al Shaibi. I met him a couple of times at the bank, and I think that's your daughter there. And you look lovely in the jalabiya, Diana.
Thank you. And that the other gentleman is Sheikh Ali bin Abdullah, the great falconer, who's on the board of the bank.
Okay. Oh wow, that's lovely.
And
that's
then
nice.
And then the other picture is when Michael Byatt, the great Arabian expert, and I were going to be doing a talk at the Museum of Natural Science here in Houston about the Arabian horse. And so he had permission from Sheikh Hamad bin Ali at Al Shaqab to bring Hariri Al Shaqab to Houston. And we wanted to get some publicity for the event. So a great local philanthropist and known by everybody, Lynn Wyatt, agreed to have Hariri come and meet at it, and we were going to take Hariri to her house, but then it rained like crazy. So we had to go to the Polo Club where they had something undercover. And then we have our new Qatari Consul General, wonderful, very involved with our Houston community already, Rashid Al-Dahami, also in that picture. So that's what that is as well. But the star, of course, is Hariri Al-Shaqab.
Yeah, I heard about his exploits. Amazing. There's another very nice picture I like very much, and it shows the homeliness and the love of Qatar that you both share. Can you explain a bit about this picture? It's very interesting for me.
Yes, well, General Hamad bin Ali Al Attiyah was one of our great friends, and my father came all 3 years. We were living in Doha. And he and General Al Attiyah always enjoyed seeing each other. And this is my father with General Hamad and one of his wonderful falcons, and of course Chase there. And Chase worked very closely with General Hamad and all the Qatari armed services. Oh, and this is out at the former agriculture minister Al Hayareen at his farm, and he's holding the 2 camels that Chase and I are on. That was our first Qatari camel ride.
Wow, that's very interesting. That's lovely. And I think this is the time I missed out meeting you. Is this is recent, I would imagine.
Yes, that was last year at the horse show in Souq Waqif. And Sheikh Nawaf's horse had won, and he kindly asked me, you know how they ask friends to go out and come with them when they receive their award. So he asked me to accompany him as he accepted the award for his horse. So that's what I'm doing there. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm planning to bring his son on as a guest later in October. One of his sons.
Which one?
And
which
Sheikh Nasser, the younger son who's into. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and
no, he's old. Sheikh Nasser is the oldest son.
Yeah, I get mixed up with the
son.
two. I think I know the younger son. I think I know yes, the guy who's into taekwondo and martial arts. I think both are, but one's more.
Oh, they all
more into it. This is a very nice picture. Diana, this is one of my favorite pictures of you. Would you like to delve onto this picture and give us a little story about it?
Well, that was the most amazing. I think you also were there for the opening of the National Museum. And I was up in the VIP section where I was not seated, but my friends were. So I was up talking to Sheikh Hassan and Sheikh Aisha bin Fala, Sheikh Nawaf. And Sheikh Nawaf asked me to take a picture of him with some friends. And then Sheikh Hassan asked Sheikh Nawaf to take this picture of us. So this is a great photography picture. This is at the Asian Games. It was the day that Qatar won its first gold medal for the eventing. And Sheikh Moza and Sheikh Hamad came, and Sheikh Moza asked me to sit with her. And so we were sitting watching the horses, and it was quite an amazing day.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite pictures, because I'm going to come back to you. I would love to know more about volunteerism from you, because as the First Lady of Doha from the U.S. Embassy, you've done a great job as a volunteer in Qatar, and you're just amazing. I would like to know more about that. This is a very particularly nice picture. I just love this picture. What are you pointing out here to the Father Emir, Diana?
As I recall, I'm telling him the name of the riders, because so the Qatar team was doing it a ride, and I think I was pointing out one of the riders, and because it was right about that point that they were doing a round, and if that round went clear, they would win the gold medal, which they did. But the volunteer, as you can see, is everybody who is in Doha at that time knows the Asian game uniform. But that was sort of my last big volunteer job. The first thing I did was to arrange desert cleanups, which I think is one of the most important things people can do to take care of the earth. And it makes so much sense not to throw litter, or if you see it, to go ahead and pick it up. And then I worked in the West Asian Games and then the Asian Games. Those were, lots of other things, but those were the three big activities. And picking up trash, Chase thought he was going to get out of one of our desert camps, but he went to pick up our friend, our daughter Ellie's godfather, who was the American ambassador to the European Union. But our friend Boyden Gray said, Ambassador Gray said, no, wherever Diana is, that's where I want to be. And so he gets off an airplane from Europe, and everybody's down there. Sheikh Mayasa and Sheikh Jassim came, and we were all down near Red Rashid, and we were all picking up, reaching into these bushes, picking things up out of the scorpion-infested desert. I thought it was fun. I'm not sure Chase did.
It was great civic duty.
So I've actually, it's being continued now in Qatar with a lovely organization called DEAP, and I'm part of their volunteer group. I like volunteerism too. It's taken over by an American guy by the name of Jose, and he's doing a lovely job with them. I also like to assist some of them in the middle of all these pictures, our picture story. But I'm going to come back to that. So Diana, make your acquaintance. I would like you to shed some light on Diana, the ambassador's wife, Diana, the equine lover, and I believe you got an accolade for the top rider in 2006. Wow. Give me more about that. Top rider. Wow.
Well, this is for the endurance, and it's really, I don't think I even won a race that year, but they add up the points, and I rode in enough races and came high enough in the top 10 in other times that my point count was the highest. But that's a lot because I had, the great honor of riding very good horses. My first year I rode for Shahaniya, the farm of Sheikh Mohammed bin Khalifa. The next year I rode for General Mohammed bin Ali Al Attiyah horses, and then the final year for Sheikh Mohammed bin Fala. So I had very, very outstanding horses to ride and made a lot of friends. Chase called it equine diplomacy.
Oh, okay, wow. And my exhibition, the photo exhibition that I'm going to have in December or January. Actually, I'm going to postpone that just because of you. I'm calling it Equine Divine, and I'm going to be. I would love you to be part of that exhibition of mine. So you're so humble. I mean, I'm telling you that you got an accolade for being the top rider in 2006, but you're telling me that it was because of the horses. So now I get it. Well, you had some really good horses there. Fantastic. So you've already told me something about the volunteerism that you've done. Two more things I would like to know about you is you authoring the book, the sea, the sand.
Sand, sea, and sky. You asked me to have it here. So it's Qatar, sand, sea, and sky.
Can you put it up? Can you put it up a bit? Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. That's a beautiful book. Yeah.
And that's an old book now. It came out in 2011. But the story, Qatar's story is still very relevant, and except for the photos that show unfinished buildings, it's the pictures are also are mostly still relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you share a little more light on that book? I believe you told me Her Excellency Sheikh Mayasa did the forward for it.
Yes, she did. The way it all started, in fact, I was speaking to His Highness, now the Father Emir, about a book about Arabian horses. And then I followed up with Sheikh Mayasa, and she said, well, we already have somebody working on that. Why don't you do a book about the whole country? And I thought, why don't I do a book about the whole country? So then Henry DeLaw became my the photographer. And I set up photo shoots all over the country. People, so many friends were very, very helpful. We were able to get on Qatar Petroleum helicopters. So he got, aerial photography, some of the most beautiful photography I've ever seen of the Dakhira area from that helicopter. And we were just very, very lucky. And then we were actually, we pulled the book back from the publisher when Qatar won the bid for the 2022, because I knew, we literally pulled it back. My photographer, fortunately, he was in Dubai. I said, get on a plane. And he flew to Qatar. I wasn't there. I said, don't go to your hotel, just go straight to the Corniche. I knew there'd be huge parades, and he just got wonderful photos of that. So we were lucky to be able to include that.
I was just going to tell you that I documented that day too with my camera. A lot of pictures of that, and I've showed it to Nasser Al Khater, the deputy CEO of Qatar 2022, and I'm planning to do an exhibition of those pictures early 2022. So you better be there, wonderful. Diana.
Inshallah.
Yeah. So if Dalal is not in the picture anymore, Big B Photography is here, all ready to snap away for you. I was going through some of your pictures and Googling something about Diana and Ambassador Chase also, and you're the cultural advisor. You were or are the cultural advisor to the Qatar American Institute. Can you give me more light about that?
Yes, I was the cultural advisor to the Qatar American Institute. They're in the process of sort of changing their mission, and they've announced already on their Instagram they're renovating a new building in Washington. So hopefully there'll be lots of wonderful activity coming out of the QAI.
Lovely, yeah. They better. It's good that they're revamping, because next year, ready or not, I am doing a collaboration for the Year of Culture Qatar and USA with the Untermeyers. I'm asking you all, I'm telling you all too. I don't know. What do you think?
It'll be a full year. It's going to be amazing, I think, and hopefully we just all can hope that there's a vaccine for the pandemic. I'm just heartbroken this year for France, because obviously some things are going forward, but there's such a rich opportunity there that we're not being able to celebrate. We all just
very true. Very true. Well, don't be too disheartened, because I'm celebrating Bastille Day on my next Big B meetup, and I'm coaxing the current French ambassador. Yeah, I'm coaxing the current French ambassador to be my guest. He's a lovely, sprightly gentleman who's been at one of my photo exhibitions in Qatar. Also, I'm doing some. I'm planning to do a Qatar France Year of Culture, a physical Big B meetup in December. In fact, if there was no COVID, I would be in Paris this week or next week to actually have a physical Big B meetup, and then fly down to Toronto for my cousin's wedding, and then do an East Coast drive. An East Coast drive straight down from Toronto to Houston to see the Untermeyers and talk about the Year of Culture for next year. Remember, I was having this chat.
I do remember. I remember putting you in touch with Fatima Aldosri, the
Yes.
executive director
Yeah.
of the Qatar American Institute.
Absolutely, yeah. And I have the distinction.
Everybody's plan.
True. Ambassador Chase, I have the distinction of being one of the few people who have seen America 3 times or 4, but actually haven't stepped foot into America. Now, I haven't flown over America. How I've done that is I've been to Niagara Falls 4 times.
So
Wow.
that's
Yeah.
more than
So
many.
Yeah, so I've been to Niagara and I've seen buffalo, but I haven't entered into the United States. But hopefully that changes next year. I'm definitely coming to see you guys, whether you like it or not.
We'll look forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Coming back to coming back to the Qatar America, you were integral part of doing. I would like to talk to you about your equine love. I haven't really grasped that because I want people to know about your love for the Arabian horse a little more, and then we can go to the next topic.
Well, my family are from Wyoming, and I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure my grandfather, when each grandchild was born, sort of looked around the ranches and thought, well, that retired horse will be a good starter horse for this one. So all of us were put up. We lived in town, but we went out to the ranches and we were put up on horses when we were very little. I mean, I have pictures of my little legs, sticking straight out because they wouldn't even go over the side of the horse. So we just grew up with horses, loved horses. And my stepfather actually adopted an Arabian horse at one point. And I took one look at that horse, plus having read so many books about Arabian horses, and just fell in love with them. And so it was this amazing gift that, every little girl of a certain age who read all the Walter Farley books and the Black Stallion, we all dreamed about riding Black Stallions in the desert. And I got to. It was the most amazing things. So I just, Sheikh Hamad bin Ali at Al Shaqab, he one time told me when we were looking at the horses, he'd say, and of course he's renowned the world over for his expertise in breeding and the beauty show horses. He said, Diana, you would just be terrible at this because you just love them all. And that's essentially a true statement. I just love them. I love how relational they are, how curious, and their movement. They're great horses.
Yes. And I love the way how Ambassador Chase is looking at you. I mentioned this earlier offline, the way you look at each other. That's just amazing. I love the camaraderie and the love between you all both. I have one, talking of love, you have one daughter, Ellie, but I do mention you telling me you have 18 or 16 sons. Can you give me some story about that? How did that happen?
Well, in Qatar, we said we had one daughter and 18 sons because Chase had 3 shifts of 6 bodyguards that would be around him whenever he was making any movements outside of the embassy.
From Laquia.
And we just really adopted all these boys. And of course, some of them we were closer to than others. But I think there was one picture that we showed down in the desert I sent to you. And that was on their a day off. They'd come with us to some people's camps and they said, we want to take you to our camp. So they had their day off and they then invited us to go down to their camp in the desert and cooked for us. And we just loved them. And the great joy is going back to Qatar, and maybe we'll be sitting, in those very wide open restaurant at the Sheraton, and one of them will come by and they'll see us, and particularly if they see our little Ellie, they're so excited. But they stop and talk, and it's been great to see the investment in human capital that Qatar has done, because most of them didn't speak any English when they were with us, or very, very little. And now so many of them are fluent in English. So they're doing all this development, and it's just wonderful to see. But we adopted everybody. I think some people didn't ever want to invite us over because I always wanted to make sure that if they were sitting there for all these hours if we went to a dinner, that they would get a little something to eat or drink. And for a lot of people, they don't want to necessarily feed an extra 7 people.
True, true. Talking of development, Ambassador Chase, you are much loved and remembered for your development with the American School of Doha. In fact, my classmate Abdul Ghafoor, when I mentioned to him that I'm getting Ambassador Chase and his wife on board, saying, "Yeah, I remember him because he was very, very involved with the development of the American school, the new premises, which is humongous on the Salwa Road." Can you shed a little bit light on that? Did you play baseball there? Were you a baseball coach?
No baseball connection, but whoever is the U.S. ambassador is automatically or ex officio the chairman of the board of the American School of Doha. And that was a role that I was happy to fill, along with some very distinguished Qataris like Omar Almana and Jassim Jeda and Hussein Al Fardan, great citizens of the community who helped immensely to promote the American School of Doha, particularly if there was need to get some kind of agreement from the government, and the expansion of the campus, which was agreed to before I arrived, but which occurred during the time we were there. It was a good example of the work done by those very eminent Qataris that expanded the reach of the board.
Fantastic, great. I also have a lovely story there because I used to go there every Saturday, being a devout Catholic that I can call myself, because we had an American priest by the name of John, Father John, and he was integral in getting us the basketball court, the indoor basketball court for our services every Saturday and Friday. And so I used to be a regular at the American School of Doha in that early for however long we used their premises. Yeah, so it was nice. It's a fantastic school. Pardon me?
We had a personal investment in that our daughter, Ellie, was in the 5th, 6th, and 7th grades there. And she fitted beautifully, made many friends, had the benefit of that amazing student body where kids come from all over the world. And of course, that was a personal connection for us as parents of a student, wholly apart from, but a very helpful part of the official role that I had to play.
And I worked with, one of the American school. It is probably one of the most expensive of the independent schools, but they always had the goal to try to increase the number of Qataris who were attending. They wanted to have it, I think, at 18%, and it almost never got there. So I worked with Dr. Sheikha Al-Jaber to try to get the government to extend the support of dollars to Qataris for education, to be able to use that to also fund attendance at the American school. And it wasn't easy, but we met with lots of people. And I think ultimately they have been able to do that. And that's a good thing because, part of the richness of that school is the number of Qataris who go there.
And Bosco, while neither of us have relationships anymore with the American school, I'm on the board of a wonderful private school in Doha called the Debeki High School for Health Professions. And I'm delighted to have an ongoing role with that school that has significant numbers of Qatari students, but also the broader international community there in Doha.
Wow, that's
Qatar
news to me. Sorry, I didn't. Yeah. So a few more questions. What was it? How was it like to spend the 4th of July in these quarantine times? There's no fireworks for sure. What are you all up to for the 4th of July?
Actually, I'm on a city board that supports the mayor's office of special events, and we actually are having a very huge fireworks show. It's actually because they're not. It will all be televised. People are being told to stay away, but we're actually shutting down more the park, which usually is full of people, but since there won't be people there in the concerts, we're actually shutting down a bigger area and doing a bigger fireworks show so that more people will be able to see it from further away. So people will be able to sort of social distance and still see it. And then our partner television station will go ahead and do what they always do. They do great TV coverage, and we'll be having music and coverage that way. So there actually will be fireworks, bigger fireworks. It's just, it'll be a very different sort of situation.
Okay. So Houston, we don't have a problem then.
Well, we definitely have a problem, but not having fireworks isn't one of them.
Yeah, lovely. So
we're definitely having a surge here, a corona surge. So people, very important for people to not go out in these big groups.
Exactly. So, Ambassador Chase, how do you spend your time now as a retired ambassador? What do you do? Are you also gardening with like Diana does every morning?
No, I'm recognized as not being very helpful, not very expert in those things, other than taking the trash away. I can do that. But we leave to the expert actually how to keep plants growing and alive.
Wow.
But to answer your question, Bosco, I'm quite active. I'm not retired in any active sense, in that I'm on the board of a couple of companies. One is a vaccine manufacturer, and the other is working on an air disinfecting system that we think is very exciting, very promising at this time. I'm also an advisor to the Embassy of Qatar on their activities here in Texas. And as Diana mentioned, involved before with the Qatar Harvey Fund, which was the $30 million spent for various community projects to help restore the community after that hurricane. And then here at home, when we have been shut in, I have embarked on a number of projects, such as rearranging the books that you see behind us, and doing various other long-term household needs that never got done before.
He's a great organizer.
Oh, okay. Wow. I'm a great disorganizer. So thank you so much. I'm going to take a leaf out of your book here. Literally, definitely one of those books. You know, having said that, I'm supposed to be sending you my calendar of Qatar that I produce every year. And because of COVID, I couldn't do that. But I'm still going to send you a copy because I believe you'll like it. It's a photography of different heritage sites of Qatar that I collaborated with Qatar museums with a lovely Turkish-German archaeologist called Farhan Sakal. He's a good friend of mine. And we embarked on a trip around Qatar, taking pictures of different places, heritage sites, from Mafia to Jumeirah. And I believe you've been to some of those places with the horses. I mean, that's a dream for me. I'm trying to coax a few stud farm owners, if they can if they can actually pay me to take pictures of their horses, because my dream is to retire. Although I'm in my 40s, I would like to retire as an equine photographer, fly around here and there, take pictures of horses, from the famous Indian horses that we get in India called Marwari. I am impressed. Wow. I am very impressed. Diana, that is amazing. How do you know about the Marwari horse? Yes, they are beautiful.
Henry Dalal, the photographer I worked with, has done a book on the
61st Indian Cavalry.
Yes, but of course I knew about the Marwari horses too, just because during the West Asian Games, I met a lot of the riders who were here, and just met them and talked about those horses and all the games. But they're beautiful. Those little ears that point in.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's a very competitive field on photography. But I wish you luck. But I saw a lot of your heritage photography on social media. It was very good.
And one advantage of an equine.
I'm so sorry, but could you repeat yourself? We're having a little bit of an issue with the sound. There's a lag. Can you? You said something very interesting because we laughed.
Yes, well, I said one definite benefit of being a equine photographer is you will never get a complaint from your subjects.
Absolutely, yeah. I might get a kick though.
Well, that qualifies, I suppose, as a complaint.
Yeah, true. Having said that, I've been to quite a few of the farms in Doha. I'm sure you've been to more than me. I've gifted my sister a wedding photography by myself, where I shot her in her wedding gown and her husband at Sheikh Nasser's farm, who now owns one of the football teams in the Spanish league. I think he owns. I can't get the name of the football team, but Malaga. Yeah, he owns FC Malaga. It's a Spanish football team in the first division. So he's put the horses on a back burner, I believe. I shouldn't say that actually on live TV, on live Big B meetup. Yeah, but yeah, so it has been a pleasure and an honor to have you both on our Big B meetup. And I would, on a parting note, I would like to say that I would like to have you as guests again, and this time in the physical sense, for the Year of Culture, celebrating the Year of Culture of Qatar and USA next year, 2021. Again, it's a question and it's a direct, I wouldn't say order, I'm not from the Navy, but I'd love to have you all participate.
Well, we would welcome that as a way of being back in Qatar. So it serves
Absolutely.
that purpose.
Sure, great. And I will be sending you couriering you my calendar, and hopefully I'd get when you guys travel again, or if I can get my hands on the book, Diana, if I can purchase it somewhere, or if you have a copy, but I'd like it autographed by you. That would be the oomph factor about it. Yeah.
I'll certainly try. It weighs about 5 pounds. I don't take many around.
Okay.
If you have any friends in the Ministry of Culture, they maybe have still some copies.
I will do that. Thank you once again, and happy 4th of July to you and Ambassador Chase and Diana, and to your daughter Ellie. And have a lovely afternoon and evening, and enjoy the fireworks.
All right, thank you.
Very good.
And thank you everyone for viewing, tuning in, and goodbye. Thank you so much. Masalama.
Masalama.